Today we have with us the first young person from Bangladesh as part of the Voice of the Young series. I'm really happy to broaden it to at least all the South Asian countries and perhaps also include a couple of African countries where I have contact. So I'm really happy that we have the first broadening of this channel, of this segment of this channel. Hello, everyone. Good to be with you once again. We are very lucky to have Israr Hasan with us. Let's hear from him. Over to you, Israr.
All right. Thank you, Professor Mr. Professor Shubodh. It's really nice to meet you, and I would like to thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk about, to hear what young people have to say. So thank you so much. My name is Israr Hasan. I currently work as a researcher at Brack University's Public Health School. So my background is that I actually grew up the initial first couple of years in Uganda. So my life was in Kampala. So I was what you would say an implant into a more larger diaspora. I'm actually the diaspora from which comes Rishi Sunak, the current Prime Minister of UK. In Uganda, I lived in Uganda for 10 years. My family still lives there. My uncles and my cousins are still part and parcel of what is the elite group of Ugandan society because they're recent migrants, but they still live there. So I lived in Uganda for 10 years of my life, and then I came to Dhaka. When I came to Dhaka when I was 10, 11, 10, yeah, I just turned 10 maybe at the time or 11ish. So for me, it was like I had to learn my language, Bangla. So it was I had to learn through Bangla, and then ever since then I've been living in Bangladesh. I actually did my schooling here. My university was here, and my undergraduate was in economics and anthropology. And I've actually been like so using economics and anthropology. Economics is a very dry subject, so I'll be honest to you that I kind of still struggle with it. So anthropology was my opening. Was my Pandora's box of ideas and everything else. So using anthropology and economics, I started to take a bigger interest in South Asia and in Bangladesh. And then yeah, so right now I work in Brack University, which is the namesake of the world's largest NGO, Brack, which itself plays a very important role in the history of the country because we speak of Bangladesh's progress and growth, which again, whatever people say, including whatever native Bangladesh say as well, is exemplary compared to what it was, what our forefathers and my father told me in 71, how it was during that time. It played a very important role in two things: educating women and also creating opportunities for people to fend for themselves.
Yeah.
And BRAC has played an important part in that. So I'm really happy that I've also been able to
Yeah. Let me
study in
just
the
stop,
university.
let me just stop you there because most people aren't
Yeah,
aware of BRAC. They hear of
yeah, yeah.
Grameen and they think Grameen is the most important NGO, but BRAC was formed before Grameen, and BRAC was really the first one to take up the all-round development in Bangladesh. So yes, and I did go to BRAC headquarters in Dhaka. And when you go there, you feel like, okay, you are not, you are in any place in the world. You are not just in one country. BRAC headquarters looks like what it could be in any country. It's so meticulous, so efficient, so well done. And BRAC is really much broader than Grameen. Grameen, of course, is very good and Grameen is very effective, but BRAC has been very, very influential, and I'm glad that it did so. Okay, so sorry for the interruption, but I thought many people I
Hmm.
meet only think of Grameen, they don't think of BRAC. But BRAC is very important for Bangladesh.
Yeah.
So go
So
ahead.
I think thank you so much for mentioning that. I just want to mention that the name of BRAC, it's an acronym by the way. It
Yes, I
stands
know.
for Bangladesh Rural Advancement Committee,
Yes.
and then you have this huge NGO and sector, everything else. It's kind of branched out in many ways right now. Now, what was meant for the poor right now has catering industries making milk products, from making jute fabrics to having their own brack chicken, like they have their own poultry farm. So it's a pretty big industry generally. I think for me, if I talk as a Bangladeshi, but I also think of myself as a global South Asian, if that's the word I would use. I think that Bangladesh's success as a nation is linked to the success of our South Asian neighbors. I think I say this very importantly because as much as I like to say, I look at India, and my I also want to add that my family, my mother's side of the family, also has roots in West Bengal. So partition has a huge effect on my thinking of how I see look at my country generally right now. I think it's been almost 52 years since we were independent, but still I think Bangladesh is looking searching for its identity, whatever state it's going to be. And with rising religious majoritarianism and ethnic nationalism in all parts of the world, actually, in South Asia, that is what I would like to focus on. I feel scared about how we're going to be in the next couple of years, the next, I don't know, millennium, to be very honest, because I just feel that while my country has grown economically, liberal is the right word if we want to be using the word economically liberal, economic growth. Socially, I feel like there's lots for us to learn. And I'm 26 years old, and like I said, my growth, my epiphany of understanding that I'm a Bangladeshi, I'm even Bengali, like which means I'm a Bengali.
Yeah, yeah.
This thing came very late in life for me because um I'm also like if I think of it, I was always detached from my culture generally because the idea was that for many of my generation, it's that you're done with education, you go to America, Canada, you settle there.
Okay.
That's it, the kalat, that's it. So for me, like I started thinking during COVID, this thing changed in me a lot of time because I saw my friends go away and they were left out of jobs, and I was lucky enough to actually study, to do an internship in the think tank in India. It was online. Kudos to them. Thank you. I mean, that was a blessing. They gave me online to do an internship. And from there, I got to learn about how our industries are linked, how our agriculture is linked in the country, in India and Bangladesh, how our seeds produced in Bangladesh, the GM seeds, which are very controversial in many ways, genetically modified seeds in many circles are controversial, how they're basically seen as a life source uh, of upliftment by Indian farmers. And that's when I suddenly had this idea that there's so much about my country I don't really know. And if you scratch the surface, there's so much about Bangla culture I don't personally know. So for me, being a globalized South Asian Bangla citizen also does not mean to be focused only on Bangladesh or as a geographic entity, but it means looking at encompassing it through the lens of what how our neighbors see it as well. You know,
Okay.
Ghore Bhaire, but like this is a novel by Tagore, right? A Home on the World. But I feel the world isn't also the. I feel like I feel like they're both interconnected so well. I mean, and I feel like as a Bangladeshi, there's so many nuances of questions, and I'm not confusing. I hope I'm not confusing, but there's so many nuances of identity and what we are and how we are and how we want to flourish, without. It's not possible to do that if we do not have what I would say a South Asian sensibility of who we are. And for me, that is a large part of becoming a Bangladeshi in the 21st century. It's not only linked to being a Bangladeshi, it means loving the entirety of Bangladesh, but also understanding Bangladesh's history and how we cannot we cannot live or let live without the cooperation of our neighbors.
Yeah.
Because
Okay. Okay, I get it. I understand what you're saying that
yeah,
nobody's isolated anymore. I mean, as it is, you and I
yeah,
are
definitely.
talking, and I am certainly pushing the idea that young people of South Asia should have a common platform. I'm pushing that idea, which
Yeah,
in this channel, which is why I have you. Otherwise, I could shut my eyes and say, why? I'm just going to do India. But I'm saying, no, I'm going to have Pakistan, I'm going to have Sri Lanka, I'm going to have Bhutan, I'm going to have Nepal. There should be a channel for young people. We are not
definitely.
anymore in that shell of ours, and just because we love our country, we happen to identify with it, we are patriotic, but that doesn't stop us from being more than that. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think that our nation's successes also depends on how we interact with other nations. But I think it's also very important how we interact with our histories. I think our histories for like our multiple our the multiplicities of our histories have never been looked into. I mean, I'm going to be honest that growing up in Uganda, I was never exposed to the issues we have in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. I personally did not even know Bangladesh was a part of India until I was part of India and Pakistan until I came to Bangladesh, right? As in history books, and then okay. And then that's because my parents never told me. My mother never told me about the fact, so like we have roots, we have relatives in India, whatnot. She never did. I mean, it was never part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And And there in like in Uganda, in Kampala, we were known because there'll be a lot of Indian Bengalis and be a lot of Gujaratis. You know, you're kind of like, oh yeah, okay, I'm Indian or I'm South Asian, or it's mostly, you know, it doesn't, you don't really have an identity. You're like part of the community. So I
Well,
just think it's interesting about how we kind of see our histories as well. And
we just call it
I'm
desi.
genuinely,
We don't call it
yeah,
anything.
just call it, yeah,
Desi. We are all
exactly.
desis.
Yeah,
This was a term we
yeah,
evolved in the US in the late mid 1970s because, you know, when we were students, there were people, and we can't say we are subcontinental. That's not a word.
yeah, exactly.
So the word evolved that we are desis. And whether you're from
Yeah,
Afghanistan or Sri Lanka, you are all desis, you know. That I want this to be a desi channel.
yeah,
By the way, I have
definitely.
been to Kampala and Uganda so
Yeah,
many
yeah,
times. I've traveled through rural Uganda so many times, and I know the culture and society of the expatriates there quite well. So I understand what you're saying about, and there's so many Gujaratis who left Uganda. By the way, you know, I guess, you know, when I first went there in 1998, Uganda was still not anywhere as developed as it is now. You know, it was in a pretty bad shape. You know, to check out of the Sheraton Hotel, the only five-star hotel, used to take 30 minutes. And because it
yeah.
was everything was so slow, inefficient, and since we were a team of five, we had to schedule 2.5 hours in advance of going to the airport to begin checkout. You know, because they'll go and check your room, they'll do this. They'll today Uganda is a much different situation, and you know, let's not go into Uganda politics and economics, but we know that it has progressed. And by the time my last visit in 2008, there were traffic jams. I said, what? There are traffic
Well,
jams in
yeah,
Kampala.
yeah, biggest marker of development of sorts.
The
Yeah.
first time I went there, there was no traffic jam. We used to walk in the middle of the road. And then there were traffic jams. They say, oh, yeah, I can't come to you in time. It's like Dhaka. We can't reach in time because there's traffic jams. So that's a different life. But anyway, tell us more about what your friends think, what they, not just you alone, but your group and so on. What are their feelings? What are their hopes, frustrations, and so on?
Yeah. So one of the things I just want to add, like when I came to Dhaka in 2006-7, right? There was only two multinational restaurants, KFC and Pizza Hut
Yeah.
in Bhushan Bonani. I'm sure you've been in the series, right? Right now, there are restaurants everywhere of all kinds and all sorts.
Yeah.
Dhaka is like when I was in Dhaka, I mean, I think this is another part of its retro progress, I would say, that we have a lot of malls, restaurants, you have like you have local brands coming up, you have international brands coming up. A few days ago, Nike opened up. All that's fine, but I feel like one of the like, if I'm going to be honest with you, Dhaka needs more green spaces. We need more leisure activity times. We need to have a more open space in the city. And I think like it's getting too congested. We're a smaller country. We're a very over. I mean, our population rate has dropped drastically, thank God, through good family planning. But we're still a very overcrowded and a very unplanned city. This is where I think my friends, where people's hopes and aspirations comes from. I think the country's future depends on one thing. That's security. That's safety of any kinds. If you have if your security in the country, as I graduated back in 2020, my graduate at that time I saw most of my friends getting laid off, and this post-COVID world. So many of them like have either like last couple of weeks have left for Canada. And the joke initially was in my area, in like area nearby in Bonani, people would say that so many people have left for Canada that Bonani is now empty because people have been living in droves. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a joke people would make itself.
Yeah.
So one of the things people have to realize the fact that the country needs to have safety, and it's I mean, it's largely linked to, I mean, in country, I think everything in this country is mostly linked to the bureaucracy and how things are run. And that's what people think. Job security is a major problem. And also because you have to think about it that our parents raised us in a different Bangladesh, which was whether I would like to say it was a much more cleaner Bangladesh, as in like less and more environmental friendly. There was more space and everything else. Whatever, security reasons there were. Right now, Dhaka is becoming, I would say, more polluted. It's becoming less areas of environment. I mean, as you were saying about traffic jam, we do have metro rails. That's very important. We have rails right now. But I'm very sorry, but rails are not going to help if you don't improve public transport. So you see, the overall situation is like poorly. If I have a good job, everything's fine. But I have to think about the fact that how am I going to travel, cost effective. I don't want to rely on my own. I also want to have proper safety in all aspects of my life, including transport and everything else. So my people's general idea is that they want to have security. They go to Canada and America. It's not like these countries also give security. By the way, I not even America is a good example, but that's something people look for: good security. They want to do something, and I think we need to learn how to. I would say very importantly, respect each other. I think it's something which we do desperately need because the security, emotional security is also linked to your job security is linked to your emotional security as well. If you feel like whatever you do, you'll be respected for it.
Yeah,
You will not feel like people are coming for you for what you do itself. So that is very important. And it's also because the country, I mean, like I was saying, we talk about economic liberalism. Yes, we have done well, but the economic liberalism is mostly for the rich. It's
yeah,
not like, I mean, bureaucracy, that's how bureaucracy works. People would like to also do something by themselves. If you go to the slums of Dhaka, I've had the chance to go there as well. You will not, it's not like the average slum of Dhaka, people smoking and then just sitting down, women in clothes. No, you will see all sorts of people there. You will even see people in slums who have YouTube channels, who run their own YouTube, who are YouTubers. They have LCD TVs. It's a very different, and they're all, one of the things which people, I would see Bangladesh get a lot of flack initially. I would say also from Indian media times and all sorts of media that we cannot speak English. You will see English is now more widely spoken in Bangladesh every throughout itself. People know more about. You have from people from living in upper class areas to people living in the slums who know about BTS, about like Korean bands, Korean architecture, Korean art culture as well, Japanese culture, anime, everything. So you see, I mean, I think it goes to principle that everyone's wanting to learn so much. But I think the basic premise of why people's frustration in the country is that whatever countries are going to become in terms of security, or in terms of job creation, we have an economic growth rate. We do have startups coming up, absolutely. But with that, I mean, are we getting security that this job is going to be held? Will it be comfortable for my family? Will I be able to at least get married? Will I have health insurance as well? I mean, it's another contradiction we share with India and Sri Lanka is that we are also a socialist country by constitution, right? I mean, public health services during COVID. I think Bangladeshi public was, let's say, was the more least COVID skeptical, and we had amazing rates of COVID recovery. I would say, like in terms of, I mean, COVID vaccination. But this was done because the private sector helped in, right? BRAC and other places, well, they all helped in as well. I think we do need to have a robust healthcare service. We need to have good transportation facilities. We need to and also it has to be decentralized. Not everything should be in Dhaka. Speaking of which, another issue I have, which I personally feel it's very important because we look at how our countries are being defined, right? Like I'm just going to be rigid terms, right? Categorically, Pakistan, Punjabi, Islam, India, Hinduism, right? Bangladesh, Bangla, everything. Okay. I think I have a problem with that categorization. Obviously, I'm just giving a very uh, short list of categorization itself. Things are much more complex. Dhaka doesn't always have to be the only city developed. The other places develop as well. But another point of development is if we look at other parts, I would say indigenous communities also need to be integrated into the country's mainstream as well. We also need to in terms of the way we Bangladesh, like to say, they're very homogeneous. We are 98% Bengalis, but I think we have a lot of people who are Biharis. We have a lot of people who are indigenous from a Chakma community, Tripura community. These
yeah,
people also need to be integrated. I do
yeah,
have a friends from certain minority communities who also left because they just, like I said, it's the same thing with security, but they feel like they'll be better off somewhere else.
yeah,
And I just think central Dhaka is not going to work. We need to open up other spaces as well. When I just feel like the opportunities for Bangladesh are endless, but what always we just need is a structure. And that structure goes for every society. And that has to come from somewhere. We do not know. And it's very sad to say this, but I think COVID itself has not taught us a lesson in both fostering humanity as well as trying to question our humanity as well. Because I think both are very important. People say question humanity in a very negative way. I think question humanity is very important for you to understand your privilege and also how what and you what and what and where you can what you can do. So these things go hand in hand for me. I think
Okay,
our nation.
let me interrupt you there. In 2 years ago, I wrote a book, India 2047. Okay, for us, 1947 will be 100 years of independence. And one of the points that I made in it is that we cannot have big city only development, right? We need to develop smaller towns for regional equitable development. Otherwise, what happens is what you are saying, that people leave the villages and they go to the big city, and they are not dumb people. They are on YouTube. But they have no place. They don't have enough income to live comfortably. Okay, and then the slums develop, and then you have a little problem, and they have to leave. This is not sustainable. So the only way is to have more smaller towns developed. And we are looking to do that in some states in India. In West Bengal, we have selected one city, Shuri, and we are looking at a couple of others in a couple of other states with a group of people with me. And the population there is I'll use Indian terms, 1 to 3 lakhs, 100,000 to 300,000, not more. Of course, in Bangladesh, it would be a little higher because Bangladesh is more, right? So maybe you're talking about minimum 3 lakhs, where you have good facilities and you could develop those places. And that is where the focus has to be, according to me. If you rely on, like in Kolkata, in Bengal, West Bengal, Kolkata, Asansol, Durgapur, you are going to be in terrible shape. You have to have reasonable, equitable development. I think that's essentially what you are saying, that Dhaka alone cannot do it. Sure, Chittagong is there, but even I don't know the other towns in Bangladesh beyond Dhaka and Chittagong. But the whole point is to develop towns whose names people don't know. Because you have opportunities, you have more land, you have more ability to make them grow properly rather than haphazardly, which is what Dhaka has grown up as, haphazardly, as people have moved there, and then you are just meeting their needs in some fashion. And it's not a well planned, as you said, not a well planned development. Okay, it just happened. But in those smaller places, and frankly, I don't trust any government to do this. So we are actually making the effort through a non-profit organization. Okay, and I would think that perhaps it's relevant for Bangladesh. It's very hard to do it for me sitting here in the US. I'm not able to get it done so well. But I think it's an idea I would like to plant in your head, that you need reasonable, equitable development, and you need to start the work not in the villages. Okay, everybody talks of villages, but people are going to leave villages. You're going to leave, no question. You can't stop them. But then where do they go? That's the question. If they go to the small town that is nearby, where there's possibly a job, with a lower cost of living, better space, and you can build energy efficient homes there, you can build better roads there, because you're just starting. That's my hypothesis, and that's actually what I'm hoping to get done in India, in a few selected cities, maybe in 5 years, in 50 to 60 towns. Ambitious, but think about it, that this is I think the only way forward for populated countries. You just cannot have 2 or 3 big cities. In Mexico, 25% of the population lives in Mexico City. And, the city is now not livable for most people, because you can't have 25%. So Dhaka is actually, as you said, no longer livable easily. You have to live there because that's where the jobs are. But it's not, the quality of life is terrible in many ways. But you live there because that's where the jobs are. So I'm saying, let's have reasonable, equitable development. You figure out a plan for each small town. Okay, you don't come in with a template. You come in with the thinking, what can I do here? So anyway, this is just my thought. But sorry to interrupt and I'm not the speaker, you are. Let's hear from you.
No, I think you mentioned some important points as well about Dhaka becoming this way. I think this is also brings another aspect of questions which we don't talk about much, is that climate change refugees. Many people are coming because of climate change, or how
Yeah.
the sales have destroyed their land, how they feel like the crops are no longer growing. So they've been coming, everything else. They've been coming to the country as well and been working. I mean, if you, yeah, I mean, that is a major problem of how unplanned the city is. Like I've been saying, it's a paradox of in itself, right? We have achieved growth of many aspects. The country is unrecognizable to where in 1971. My father keeps telling me, how things were before and how things are itself, and things do change. We're constantly in flux. We're talking about human beings right now. But like that being said, Dhaka itself being a major city, and what that does is that it makes it overcrowded because there's no planned utilization of resources as well. I'm just going to be honest itself is that how many parks in Dhaka? There was a report that Dhaka is losing its greenery in a rapid pace. It's like there was a time 70% greenery. Now it's less than I think 30% or 25%. It's not going good. I cannot live in Bhutan Born and say, oh, there's a green space, there's a park nearby, let's go for a walk. That and there's a coffee shop and everything. That's really not going to work because I'm talking about people then you're talking about making parks and creating good places for people to live and to actually, um, live a life. I don't think most people in Dhaka want to use cars compared to the traffic. I would not want to use a car. Would you like to use a cycle or walk or whatever it is? Make a walkable city then. That's what I keep saying. I think this really is a very unplanned city in the making itself. If it's Chittagong, sure. If it's Sylhet and other places as well, which are also places of natural beauty, these are planned cities, and it's not. I mean, it's also very true that we over the last couple of years, there have been initiatives to make more universities and schools and in other parts, in other districts and divisions, which kind of reduces the pressures on students who want to still study here. Okay, then in that case, give them better dorms, give them better facilities. I feel like the overall structure, like I've been saying, in terms of maintenance and care, needs to be taken care of itself. Is it an impossible dream? No, it's not because I mean there are places in Sylhet, for example, where I mean this is a report I saw. I haven't gone back to it, but that where you have small parishes built, like British Bangladeshis who Sylheti origin, who built small parishes and small resorts and everything else. The land you make a resort, man, the land you used to make a resort, why not use the land to make cooperatives? And this is something which is very, very interesting. Cooperatives where people can live together and do something. This is something you will see in the indigenous communities, right? Where
Yeah.
they kind of manage their own land, they've grown their food, right? And there's this thing people what I would hear when I was in school is that, that there are not enough farmers in Bangladesh. Why would a farmer's son be a farmer?
Yeah.
When he can be a doctor engineer.
Yeah.
And like, and so that presents another way. So what that does is that leaves the farmers market to be captured by other forces.
Yeah.
And that's how, ultimately farmers keep losing out. So I mean, while we talk about, like microfinance, which has helped the country, sure, and other sectors as well, other loan facilities, and everything else. I feel this overall structures of us, like this growth phase we're having right now, this growth phase, it needs to be integrated, and like I said, it also needs to include what's happening in terms of climate change as well. I mean, what interventions need to be having. The problems I think with Bangladesh is that we now that we're doing good, I just hope we don't forget what our priorities are. Because then also one thing I'd like to add, this is another thing which Ragong, right, about we're talking about overpopulation and everything else, is that we also have a burgeoning refugee crisis
Yeah.
in Cox's Bazar with multiple Rohingyas coming. And this is another, like I said, another identity challenge for Bangladesh is that what do you do with these people?
Yeah.
Do we? I was in Beirut a few weeks ago, and I was very horrified to hear what was happening to the Palestinians and Syrians. They were like, if I'm going to be using the word, uh, they're doomed because there are lots of restrictions on their lives, restrictions on movement itself. They cannot work. I mean, I don't think that's a good policy. If you give them the right to work, they will be able to have mobility. So will the country be able to do it. You cannot human capital is very important. You cannot just leave them there as well and just expect NGO money to come as well. So I think we need to plan well in this case itself. Obviously, this is an international problem, sort of Bangladesh issue, but there are ways of navigating it, I would say itself, right? I mean, I feel like if we don't have to give them citizenship, but what we could do is just like, make sure the fact that the residency is something that there's so many ways of working through it. I just feel like we need to work on those things. So, but there's so many effects right now. I mean, this Rohingya issue, we never had, compared to Indian Pakistan, even Sri Lanka, we never had a big refugee problem. We had internal refugees from skirmishes with Indian groups back in the 90s, yes, but we didn't have a big refugee crisis until 2015, and 2017 got bigger. We have something 3.5 million Rohingya refugees. So, and then we have the climate crisis. And with the Rohingyas, what we've done is that we've cleared a massive land. I mean, ecologically, that's not really resourceful, So I would say that we need to plan it out. I would say if you want to make an economy better, invest in human capital better, not school and colleges per se, but make sure you have ample opportunities for other people to try what they want. That's another reason people want to move out of the country. You don't. If people feel like if you live in the West, you work for a couple of years and then you set up your own business, it is more easy to do it, right? Than
Yeah,
living in Bangladesh, right?
yeah.
So there are these issues. I mean, like I keep saying itself, I feel like I would be a better doctor outside the country than being here because if I'm here, I have to be answerable, and I have to be answerable not in the right way, and there wouldn't be any system and everything else. So I think the structures for employment and job creation for young people is very much in jeopardy. And I say this is someone that researchers because as you know, researchers have to depend on donor money, everything else back and forth. But I do think that I'm honestly skeptical about the country, a lot of aspects, but again, same time, as long as you live and as long as you breathe, you have to be an optimist. So I think it's going to be a tough time for the South Asian century, honestly, with whatever's happening.
Okay, Israr, we are running out of time. Any
Yeah,
last
yeah.
thoughts that you have you'd like to share?
Thank you. I would like to first thank you so much for giving the opportunity. My last thoughts are very important. That it's the same thing our leaders have said for multiple times that unless we get rid of the three evils of our society, I would say one is majoritarianism, one is hatred, and one is patriarchy. I feel we're still headed for. I think if we do three things, then the only reason when we can have mass hope, and I think that's when change can happen. But other than that, I must also say the fact that more cross connections, more cross culture connectivity throughout nations will help us. Coke
Okay,
Studio, amazing. It's done amazing. Literature
okay,
has done amazing. We can do better. Yeah, we can always do
okay.
better.
All right. Let's say bye to the viewers, and
All
maybe I
right. Thank
will
you.
find a time to have you back in 1 year, see what your thinking is at that time, how it has changed. Till then, let's say bye to the viewers. Bye bye, everybody. I'll be back soon,
Bye
hopefully,
bye.
hopefully
Thank
with
you.
more people from South Asia. This is the first.